The conservative Supreme Court, which of course includes 3 Supreme Court justices who were nominated and confirmed during the Trump administration, decided against blocking Texas's anti-abortion law, which effectively bans abortions past 6 weeks and encourages private citizens across the country to essentially report on anyone who might be aiding and abetting a woman seeking to have an abortion past 6 weeks. Now, this doesn't mean that the Supreme Court has weighed in on the constitutionality of this law, which just went into effect on September 1st in the state of Texas. However, it does mean that as this case makes its way through the lower courts, there is abortions are illegal. Essentially, 85% of abortions in the state of Texas happen past the 6-week mark. And so you have abortion providers in the state that have canceled appointments. They're being incredibly cautious because they're terrified of these lawsuits being brought against them from private citizens across the country. And so we are in a terrible situation because not only is this impacting women in the state of Texas, this will impact women across the country, particularly in red states. And these efforts are now being duplicated in places like Florida, which we'll get to later in the show. But let's give you the details of how the Supreme Court decided to weigh in on this and how they refused to block it. The Supreme Court's vote was 5-4, with Chief Justice John Roberts joining the court's 3 liberal members in dissent. So just consider the fact that the conservative Supreme Court justices that were confirmed during Trump's administration not only have an impact on the reproductive freedoms of women, but they will have an impact on all sorts of legislation that will be challenged by conservatives for the rest of our lifetimes. Just keeping it real. That's what the reality of the situation is. The majority opinion was unsigned and consisted of a single long paragraph. It said the abortion providers who had challenged the law in an emergency application to the court had not made their case in the face of complex and novel procedural questions. The majority stressed that it was not ruling on the constitutionality of the Texas law and did not mean to limit procedurally proper challenges to it. So again, this is essentially the conservative Supreme Court justices saying, we refuse to block it. We're not weighing in on the constitutionality of the law yet. We're gonna wait and see how this plays out in the lower courts. But the problem here is the law is written in such a way that it would not be enforced by lawmakers or politicians or officials in the state of Texas. It would essentially be enforced by private citizens throughout the country who work as snitches as soon as they suspect that someone is aiding and abetting a woman in getting an abortion in the state of Texas.
Okay, let's break it down. So first on the decision, I just want to give important context here. So they're doing 2 things that are important. One is they're saying the trick worked. Texas set up a trick so that the state is not enforcing the law, but these vigilantes are. And the 5 Supreme Court justices were like, oh, great trick. Now we know what you're doing. It's the state passing the law that in effect bans abortion. They're not dumb people. They're perfectly aware of what the trick that's being played. And they're like, well done. So because of that loophole that you created, when they sue different branches of the government, the branches of the government go, we have no standing. We're not necessarily going to enforce this law. So they're bringing the lawsuit against the wrong people. They'd have to bring it against Joe Blow when he actually catches one of those evil women. And I don't know if he throws a net over her or something and tries to cash in on his $10,000. That's when it would become a case. Now, legally, there is some truth to that, except for the fact that it's an obvious attempt to actually undermine a law and the United States Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court. So that's why the 4 other justices, including John Roberts, were like, guys, keep it real. This outlaws abortion. And so you're using a technicality here, which was the intended point of the law, as I said. Okay, so, but the second thing that it does is that means in effect now, it's in effect.
Yep.
So it is the law of Texas as we stand now, until a court reverses it. So because what a court could have done is, hey, let's adjudicate this, and we'll tell you if it's constitutional or not. But in the meanwhile, it doesn't go into effect because there's serious questions about its constitutionality, which happens all the time and which is more normal. And in this case, they said, we're not sure, go for it. Let's see how it turns out. And so that's why people are rightfully freaking out, saying that's it. Basically, abortion is now illegal in the state of Texas. And now, of course, as you all know, that's not gonna affect everybody in Texas. Rich people don't care at all. They can just hop on a plane, and they don't have to go to Paris or anything. They can go to a nearby state. So that's pro-choice, and they will. You know they're all hypocrites.
Of course.
You know the right wing gets abortions nonstop, and we've covered those stories before. Some of them will even join the picket line and go get an abortion, and then when you ask them, what the hell did you do? He said, no, it was inconvenient for me, but these people are evil, okay? So the rich Republicans will continue to get abortions to no end in Texas. They always have, and they will going forward. But poor people who can't afford flights out, well, they're stuck. And they now live under religious rule in Texas.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that's just a fact.
Yeah. So, and by the way, I mean, it's when the Supreme Court weighed in on abortion in the, of course, Roe v. Wade case, you know, the whole argument was about the viability of the fetus outside the womb, right? What is life? And if a fetus is dependent on a woman in order to live, right? Is it really a human life? And I would argue no, right? If it's not viable outside the womb, it's not a baby, okay? And what we're talking about here, we're not even having a discussion about a fetus. It's not even considered a fetus until you hit the 8-week mark. It's considered an embryo. So we're having a debate about embryos right now, as tens of thousands of Texans have died in the state over the last year. That's what it looks like at 7 weeks. Is that viable outside the womb? Is that the same thing as a human life? I would argue no, it is not. But if you're a religious person and you believe that it is, that organism is the same thing as a living, breathing human being, then by all means don't have an abortion. But your religious views should not dictate the laws of the land. We're supposed to live in a country that separates church and state. And so if we're gonna consider embryos the same thing as a living, breathing human, then we need to ensure that we have enforcement to prevent men from masturbating and wasting that precious human organism known as sperm, right? Like that's how ridiculous this whole argument is. And it's not about human lives, as I've said on the show multiple times. If this was really about human lives, then the evangelicals who have been pushing for these types of draconian laws would be up in arms about the ban on mask mandates in the state of Texas. They'd also be up in arms about what, you know, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said early on in the pandemic in this video from April of 2020 as coronavirus numbers were spiking. Here's what he had to say about human lives.
We're crushing the markets. We're crushing this country. And what I said when I was with you that night, there are more important things than living. And that's saving this country for my children and my grandchildren, and saving this country for all of us. And I don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. But man, we gotta take some risk and get back in the game and get this country back up and running.
There are more important things than living, like his precious stock portfolio and the precious markets. Like they're such hypocrites, but honestly at this point, that argument is boring. Of course they're hypocrites. Of course they don't care about human lives. All they're doing is, pandering to right wingers and single issue voters who somehow are able to think of embryos as human lives, but when it comes to actual viable living, breathing humans who are dying right now thanks to the incompetence and the greed of right-wing lawmakers, they don't care at all. They're able to separate those two things somehow. I do have some of the dissenting opinions. Each liberal justice wrote a dissenting opinion that I want to share with you all in just a minute. But Cenk, do you want to jump in?
Okay, yeah, so first of all, an embryo is closer to sperm than it is an actual human being. I mean, look at us. This is what humans look like. Look in the mirror. You saw the embryo, and you know what sperm looks like, probably. So, come on. So my point to you guys is, we can draw the line anywhere, right? And we can have a debate about where to draw the line. Anna pointed out the reasonable place to draw it, in our opinion, is when life becomes independent. Well, that means it's an independent human being. okay, and has its rights. But as long as it's dependent, whether it's your semen or it's an embryo, it obviously doesn't have full rights, to say the least. And that's why Roe versus Wade is not having an abortion at any time. You know that it says at viability, basically the third trimester, you're not allowed to have an abortion, because at that point it's an independent life. So the rest of it is religious views. Oh, well, I know, but the Bible says this. First of all, as always, let me just say, the Bible doesn't even say that. And if you don't even believe the Bible, because if you did, the Bible agrees with me. It says, no, sperm is sacred, that is life. You are not to ever spill seed. Now, why do you do that abomination? Because you don't really care about the Bible. What you care about is subjugating women.
Controlling them.
There's no question about that, guys. If you actually were even a religious fundamentalist, even we disagree with you, but you would say no man is ever allowed to spill seed. It's in the Bible, it's very, very clear, and that is an affront, and God thinks that you're killing life. That's it, you're done with it. But you don't believe that, none of you believe that. If you're right-wingers, not one of you believes that. Why? Hypocrisy, go read the Bible. You don't give a damn about it, that's why you never read it. And so now let me give you our non-religious perspective. I don't think abortion is a big deal. Oh my God, you're not allowed to say that in America. We live among religious zealots, and the Taliban will be so upset if you say that. I don't care what the Taliban thinks, whether they're in Kandahar or in Texas. Oh, you're supposed to view that as sacred. Why? It's not my Bible. I don't believe in your religion. No, you have to think like I do. Well, I don't. I don't think abortion is a big deal at all. At all. Well, I'm offended. Well, I don't care that you're offended. You're allowed to be offended. It's a free country. But what you're not allowed to do is pass laws where you enforce your views on us. Your views that are based on religion, a religion we do not all share. And they set up the country to be free of that. We are not supposed to establish a religion. And if you don't think that's true, you're wrong and you're un-American. Those are facts. Read the Constitution. But these Taliban, these theocrats, now, but who wants to live in Texas? Who wants to subject their wives, their moms, their daughters to the rule of some creepy old men who say, I'm gonna tell you what to do with your body because God spoke to me and told me. I don't give a damn what you think God told you. Okay, this is supposed to be a free country. And I know that the right wing hates freedom. Their favorite thing in the world is subjugation and control.
100%.
But our job is to fight back, and we're going to aggressively. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.